Here we are with Game 2 between Skarbrand and Solmir. We are continuing on with the Chieftain Playoffs of the Warpstone Cup. And we have a pretty unusual matchup. Actually, this is one of those matchups that just, fell between the seat cushions of the couch and hasn't been heard from since. I don't know, I'd have to go back and look. I didn't before this video, but probably have only covered this matchup a handful of times, if I've covered it at all. That is the Vampire Coast versus the Ogres. Definitely a very interesting matchup. But Skarbrand once again has gone for a little bit of a defensive formation. He's got a big old line of zombies with some halberds and deckhands, some handguns, and 2 carronades. He's got 3 rotting Prometheans, including the Regiment of Renown, and a Admiral with a polearm, Lore of Vampires, Shade Wraith Gunners in the center. That's pretty much it. So looking to surge forward and try and capture this conquest objective. The Ogres under Solmir have a huge spread out build of all sorts of stuff. We've got Noblars galore here, 5 Flingers with 5 Trappers, I believe. Yep, including the Regiment of Renown Trapper, the Boglars. Got a couple of Lead Belchers as well, or some ranged poke, some Ogre Bulls and Saber Tusk pack for a few mobile damage dealers. Eshin Maneater, super cool choice. The Weeping Blade here could potentially be very good against specific high-value armored targets, and generally is just a nice character assassinator. He's got a Butcher of Heavens for AoE damage, very cool, and an Ogre Paymaster for that cash cascade, and a pretty decent fighter overall, although not the greatest by any means. Yeah, so the Admiral's going to come forward here and immediately start to take the objective. Skarbrand, once again playing very defensively here, is going to try and probably just move up and defend the objective, I would imagine. Right now he's hanging back a little bit, allowing Solmir an opportunity to get some positioning here. We're on, what is this, the Galbraz map, so quite a bit of open space. There are some little areas you could potentially hide in. But for the time being, it looks like, yeah, Vampire Coast have grabbed the objective. Balance of power already in Ogre's favor, without nary a shot even being fired. Quite an interesting situation. But Solmir taking his time, really maneuvering his forces all the way in a surround. Carronades do actually have range to start shooting some stuff, but I think they've been on the move here, so they haven't had a lot of opportunities to fire away. Of course, the Eshin Maneater is stalked here, as are these Noblar Trappers, so they don't actually have the ability to shoot them quite yet until they are revealed. The Trapper is able to get quite close before they get spotted there, but the handguns immediately turn to respond. You see the Shade Wraith Gunners also turning to respond. Their bullets, their magical ghost bullets, have some pretty good penetration, do some nice leadership damage, so they'll be good at poking these Noblars away. Lead Belchers will definitely be dangerous here, but it's a matter of them getting in position. Try and blast these zombie lines a little bit here. Boglars also moving up. And it's going to be a little bit of a shootout initially, as the daggers come forward to throw. The handguns are going to respond. Gotta love some old zombie guns taking their shots. Having a grand time blasting away. And we're going to see a Comet. Wow, big old Comet of Cassandora from the Heavens Caster. I think he even overcasted it there. Looks like he took some damage on it. That's going to fly in at an angle here and impact the carronades. They were able to somewhat dodge, but still got some really good damage right on the crew. Not enough to force them into crumbling quite yet, but let's see. Yeah, Trappers and Slingers making their way up, trying to counterattack a little bit here. They're pulling some of the rotting Prometheans out of position and pulling some of the zombies out of position as well. We do see some zombie summons being brought up by the Admiral. And the Saber Tusks are in a position kind of to respond, but the Lead Belcher is actually a little bit behind here as one unit is lagging pretty heavily. The Heavens Caster getting blasted by the Carronades, as is the Paymaster. So both characters for the Ogres being kept at a distance by those nice anti-large cannons. Lead Belcher's going to come forward, though, and this Lead Belcher has a nice position to fire onto the Carronades. See that nice reload animation as the Ogres prepare for another volley here. have a little bit of a slope they can fire up and over. Have a small arc of fire here that they actually can get pretty good line of sight and destroy those carronades. The Eshin Maneater also running in, trying to get that Weeping Blade going on the Rotting Prometheans. 50% armor debuff is pretty potent. Boglars with their daggers could throw in here and get some really nice damage. We see Marked for Eden also in here, debuffing their melee defense, as the Eshin Maneater does take a decent amount of damage in that surround right now. Does not really have any follow-up support. Looks like the Boglar is just now getting some volleys in, and it is able to do some pretty good damage against those Rotting Prometheans for sure. But here in the center, Shade Wraith's taking some return fire, as the Noblar is also having some pretty serious leadership issues. We're going to see another Comet. Oh, impacts Shade Wraith Gunners directly. They not able to dodge that and just crumble out very quickly. So pretty good stuff there. Cash Cascade also flows through, trying to buff up Eshin Maneater. It's getting some support from the dogs. I don't know, are the coins actually just dog treats for the Saber-Tusk pack here? I say dogs. They're cats, right? Who even knows? But regardless, they're getting some nice treats here from that Cash Cascade as they get juiced up. The Eshin Maneater also getting some nice melee attack benefit from that. Able to get some damage, but the Rotting Prometheans, the Lamprey's Revenge at least, able to hold out with their regeneration. The regular Prometheans did get crushed in that engagement. So some nice synergy there from Solmir as he tries to dismantle this army. The Lead Belcher's also feasting on zombie guns at a distance. This Lead Belcher, though, is getting feasted on by the carronades as those zombie guns respond. So quite the bloody shootout so far, just all over the battlefield. We've got stuff happening. Zombies pursuing Noblars, getting picked apart in the process. Rotting Prometheans also trying to stay close, but this whole time, Vampire Coast has been in control of the objective, and that those victory tickets have been slowly accruing. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Right now, the objective is sitting over here, uncontested. The Ogres right now just focusing on trying to take out the vampire counts on the field, nice and honest-like. But the Boglar is now running into melee with the support of the Eshin Maneater. Looks like the Lead Belcher's also getting some volleys in here. Lead Belchers aren't very great against large. They have relatively low missile damage, all things considered. They do good armor-piercing damage, but generally are much better at shooting through like clumped-up infantry, rather than shooting at like monstrous infantry or single-entity monsters. But regardless, the Eshin Maneater gets caught out here a little bit. The Halberd Admiral is going to give him a little poking, give him the old heave-ho. And he does a rout, bodying the bodying the Admiral with his belly a little bit here. Anyway, yeah, we've got lots of stuff happening. Lots of units routing for the Ogres in particular. They're having some trouble keeping their leadership together, but they do have a little kind of dense block of firing units here. Ranged units able to get together here. These Flingers and the Trappers offering up a nice threat. You can see the Eshin Maneaters going to support them as well. Zombie guns not really holding out too much longer, but we shall see. As the Paymaster tries to grind through some zombies here, we're going to get the Admiral moving over to try and intercept him, but it does look like one unit of Flingers here, just briefly contesting the objective, trying to get some capture weight on it, see if they can't flip it. We are getting to the point where the objective is going to be perhaps a deciding factor in this game. Just depends on how quickly the Ogres are able to bring their forces to bear here and potentially come away with some wins in individual engagements. Right now, the balance power is favoring the Ogres pretty significantly, but of course they are quite spread out. They've got units all over the place and not a lot of ammunition left on anything individually. Except maybe these Lead Belchers, which will be able to get some good damage in, but the response from the shotguns, wow, look at that unit model just dropping there. One thing that makes the Rotting Promethean gunnery mobs so good is those gunnery mobs with their shotguns, riding the crabs around. They can fire in melee, they can fire while they're moving, they're just generally providing a little bit of damage as they maneuver. It's quite beneficial, but Eshin Maneater gets in. We're again going to see that Combination of the ranged units, perhaps with the Weeping Blade. Ooh, it doesn't look like the Eshin Maneater actually got a melee attack in there. That is unfortunate. Prometheans with their full HP, but Cash Cascade popped with the Saber-Tusk pack fighting, and Noblar Trappers. I mean, they are just Trappers at the end of the day, but with that extra melee attack, maybe you can get some hits in here against the Rotting Prometheans. Rotting Prometheans slowly taking damage over time, as the Lead Belchers also fire in from the back. Looks like the Paymaster might come for some fun himself. Maybe not, as that Trapper did just get routed there. But Skarbrand now staying close to the objective. He's got his Prometheans parked there. Lamprey's Revenge moving over to try and stabilize the objective. Right now, he needs to hold out for a little more than a minute, so a minute and a half. See how they can do. We've got one random polearm zombie doing quite well, quite healthy out there in the distance, kind of in no man's land. It will take them quite a while to maneuver back here, even if should they choose to. But the Rotting Prometheans holding the line in the meantime. Yeah, the Vampire Admiral continuing to provide some support here as well. Any late game invocations of Nehek will be quite important. But the Lead Belchers also staying like pretty close to their max distance away. Do not want to get poked by those shotguns at all. But can do quite a bit of damage here still. The problem is, if you look up at the top there, they don't have time to sit back and deal damage. They really need to find some kind of burst potential to move these Rotting Prometheans off this objective. Right now, the Rotting Prometheans are holding out quite well, both getting close to their healing cap. Lamprey's Revenge getting that Dismember put on them for a little bit of extra damage to slow them down, but even still, they're also doing some good damage to the Paymaster here, and likely are going to be able to rout him, despite getting shot in the back by the Lead Belchers, who maybe it looks like their leadership might crumble out here. And with one Rotting Promethean down, the other Rotting Promethean also is crumbling. Will he be able to get back the objective? There's only 10 seconds left for the Ogres to try and win it all. And you can see there's no units even running towards the objective. And the Vampire Coast is able to win on points there, just barely. I mean, Solmir another minute or so, and he probably would have won just by killing Skarbrand's entire army. I don't know, maybe the Vampire Admiral's actually able to hold out for some time there against what was left, but Solmir played a great game, just wasn't able to execute quickly enough to push Skarbrand off that objective, and thus Skarbrand takes the game and the series with a 2-0 sweep, moving him on to the final to face Lenorm, which I will be showing you in the next few videos. But for this video, yeah, Skarbrand knew what he wanted to do and executed on it pretty well overall. Yeah, the zombie guns in a couple instances get some really nice value, but definitely the Prometheans are kind of the main backbone of this build. And despite Solmir's pretty decent options for taking them out, right? I like the Maneater with the ranged units and kind of the synergy there to tear away the armor and then tear down those crabs very quickly. He wasn't able to execute perfectly every time. He did manage to get a couple of the units down, but ultimately these two that survived until the late game were super clutch, very critical for Skarbrand to take home the win. Nice to see carronades with some pretty decent value as well. Cannon units are not super commonly used in land battles, at least in certain matchups, but this is definitely a matchup where Skarbrand was able to keep them protected well enough that they could pay for themselves, which is nice to see. At least one of them did. The Lead Belchers also, for the Ogres, are going to come in and do quite a bit of damage. Trappers, overall, pretty cost-efficient here. The Flingers maybe didn't do exactly what they needed to. A couple of them got some pretty good value at the end of the day. But, yeah, again, maybe just having the kind of countercharge options. The Lead Belchers online a little bit earlier in the battle. Solmir might have been able to squeak out a little bit more damage through that kind of main critical portion of the battle, and perhaps is able to take home the win there at the end. Very, very close, I must say. But, yeah, that's why, you know, when you're playing Conquest, it very rarely will come down to objective points, but sometimes it does, and those are the times you gotta be aware. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.